crime did I commit?
There's no crime.
Officer Lewis, you heard her say Mr. Kern hadn't committed any crime.
She just said there was no crime.
Why wasn't he allowed to leave the scene?
Objection.
Welcome to part 2 of the update on the viral video arrest of Demetrius Kern from Cleveland Heights, Ohio, which I originally covered in July of 2023, along with Mr. Kern's attorney, Chris Wiest. Mr. Kern had been falsely arrested and charged after he was almost hit by a police cruiser driven by Officer Carly Lewis.
I apologize.
You almost ran me off the road.
I initiated my lights and sirens.
I didn't hear anything.
Whose video deposition was featured in part 1. That arrest was primarily made at the direction of Officer Lewis's supervisor, Sergeant Naftali Wolf.
Listen, I don't feel like I need to give him a ticket for that. I'm cool with just... Okay, I mean, I'm cool with letting him go. He just, I didn't understand.
He's in handcuffs.
And he's being a jerk.
He obstructed. He refused to identify himself. I'm not going to sit out here and argue with somebody for an hour.
Whose video deposition you will now see.
Is Officer Lewis a trustworthy person?
Objection. I think so.
Objection.
Yeah.
So why are these video depositions important? There are basically two things that you primarily do as a civil rights lawyer. One, taking the deposition of witnesses, which is basically just asking questions under oath in front of a court reporter, what you are seeing here. And then afterwards, two, using the transcript of that conversation to then write briefs to the court in a persuasive way to show the court what the evidence would be if presented at trial. This is what the court then reviews in a civil rights lawsuit to decide whether to give the officers qualified immunity or whether to allow the case to proceed to a trial and then let a jury decide. To make that decision, the court has to know what the facts of the case are. This is how that happens. This footage provides a unique glimpse into the most important parts of civil rights litigation that usually takes place completely out of the public view. While technically, many times you can go review deposition transcripts after the fact, these particular depositions were videotaped so you can see them and conducted by highly experienced civil rights lawyers, which, as you'll see, can provide a compelling record of a witness's demeanor and their credibility that often goes completely unnoticed in a purely written transcript.
Raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
May I call you Sergeant? How would you like me to address you today?
You can call me Nate.
Nate, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Please call me Tom.
Okay.
You just heard me introduce myself. I represent Demetrius Kern, a plaintiff in a lawsuit against you. And we're here today because this is my opportunity to take your deposition. We started this process today because you swore an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Fair?
Correct.
Okay. What does that mean to you?
The truth.
Okay.
I don't understand your question.
Sure. So some people would say, well, my truth or your truth, they're different things. What does it mean to you when you swear to tell the truth?
There is only one truth.
Okay. And for instance, if you capture something on a body-worn camera, we have video and audio, then whatever it shows is the truth. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Are you aware of any reason why you can't tell the truth here today?
I don't understand that question.
Is there any reason why today you would be unable to tell the truth? I don't know, that you've got memory problems or something like that.
That's a very vague question. That's a very strangely worded question.
Okay. I'm just trying to get at, you swore to tell the truth, and my question is, well, are you able to carry out that oath?
I fully intend to tell the truth.
Okay, and as far as you're aware, there's nothing that'll prevent you from fully telling the truth?
No.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
We learned during the part 1 video with the video deposition of Officer Carly Lewis that Officer Lewis didn't want to arrest or charge Demetrius Kern with any crime, that she was just following the orders of her supervisor, Sergeant Naftali Wolf.
I didn't want to write Mr. Kern any citations. Sergeant Wolf ordered me to write the citation.
Listen, I don't feel like I need to give him a ticket for that. I'm cool with just... Okay, I mean, I'm cool with letting him go. He just, I didn't understand.
He's in handcuffs.
And he's being a jerk.
He obstructed. He refused to identify himself. I'm not going to sit out here and argue with somebody for an hour.
Now we'll go through the video deposition testimony of Sergeant Wolf. So what did Sergeant Wolf testify to? Remember that the undisputed facts are that Demetrius Kern was involved in a near collision with Officer Lewis, that he pulled over to get her name and badge number for the purpose of making a complaint about her reckless driving, and that in so doing he was filming her.
I apologize.
You almost ran me off the road.
I initiated my lights and
I didn't hear
sirens.
anything.
And so she calls for backup, resulting in her supervisor, Sergeant Wolf, arriving at the scene.
Doing what you're doing right now?
No, sir, she almost ran me off the road.
Okay. Again, you didn't yield to lights and siren. You came out.
She was next to me and stopped and almost ran me off the fucking road. What are you talking
okay,
about?
listen to me. You asked my reasonable articulable suspicion. It's not a
I'm not
probable
under
cause.
arrest. If you arrest me, you violate my rights.
I don't want to arrest you. We have to
You're
ID
going to
you.
violate my rights. That's what you're going to
Okay,
do?
we have to ID you. You understand that? Yes, we do. I'm going to have to arrest you if you don't identify yourself.
She just said it was no crime.
It is
Listen.
a crime. Obstructing is a
What
crime.
Obstructing is a crime.
Identify yourself, Cos.
She almost ran me off the road.
And then I still have to identify you.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, I'm going to call in for your car. You can arrest me.
Okay, turn around.
Because I didn't do anything.
Okay, turn around.
I didn't do anything.
Listen,
It's also undisputed that the charges against Mr. Kern were subsequently dismissed as unfounded by the prosecutor.
Ultimately, you're aware the prosecutor dismissed the obstruction charge that you arrested Mr. Kern for. The prosecutor dismissed it or filed a motion to have it dismissed based on no probable cause, correct?
Correct.
And do you disagree with the prosecutor?
I do.
Do you know the law better than the prosecutor?
We have
Objection to the extent you're able to answer that.
we have a disagreement of opinion.
I understand. That wasn't my question. Do you know the law better than the prosecutor?
Objection. Go ahead if you can.
No, I don't know the law better than the prosecutor.
So why was Mr. Kern charged in the first place? That is the primary question here. So this is a civil lawsuit alleging a false arrest and malicious prosecution violating the Fourth Amendment rights of Mr. Kern. Sergeant Wolf admitted he has no personal knowledge that Mr. Kern failed to yield to lights and sirens.
You don't have any personal knowledge that Mr. Kern failed to yield to lights and sirens, correct?
Objection. Go ahead.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you don't know if Mr. Kern, in fact, had no opportunity to yield to lights and sirens, correct?
Objection.
I don't know.
And he never asked Officer Lewis or otherwise explored the basis for any such allegation.
And you never asked Officer Lewis, while you were at the scene, what facts constituted any potential charge of failing to yield, correct?
Objection.
I don't think so. I don't.
Okay. And in other words, you don't know what opportunity Mr. Kern had to, in fact, yield before Officer Lewis cut in front of him.
Objection.
Is that
Asked and answered. Sorry.
fair to say? You don't know.
No.
Okay.
Officer Lewis did not want to charge Mr. Kern with obstruction, but Sergeant Wolf ordered her to do so.
You ordered Officer Lewis to charge him with obstructing, correct?
Correct.
And she did not want to charge Mr. Kern with obstruction, correct?
Correct.
Yes. In fact, she's said, I only did it because I was ordered to by Sergeant Wolf. Okay?
I guess. I mean, I didn't hear that or whatever, but sure.
He gave her the order because it, quote, took it out of her hands.
Enough was enough. Like, we're not going to sit there and have court at the side of the road. And he obstructed her traffic stop, and at that point, I took it out of her hands, and yeah.
And when Mr. Kern asked at the scene why he was being charged, Sergeant Wolf truthfully answered for failing to identify himself.
Okay. And when he asked why, you truthfully answered him at the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm going to have to arrest you if you don't identify yourself.
She just said it was no crime.
It is
Listen.
a crime. Obstructing is a
What?
crime.
obstructing
You have
is
to
a
legally
crime.
Identify yourself, Cos.
Further, every reason Sergeant Wolf had to charge Mr. Kern is on Bodycam. And while he knew he could not prohibit a member of the public from recording law enforcement in the performance of their duties, when Sergeant Wolf arrived on the scene, that is what Mr. Kern was doing.
Is it fair to say you were aware that the public has a First Amendment protected right to complain about the actions of law enforcement?
Absolutely.
All right. And that means a police officer cannot retaliate against someone who's engaged in protected speech.
Correct.
And protected speech includes complaining about the performance by law enforcement.
Absolutely.
And you agree with me that when you arrived at the scene, Mr. Kern was recording Officer Lewis with his cell phone?
Objection.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I think if I remember correctly, it was
Yeah.
yes.
Sergeant Wolf also admitted that Mr. Kern was saying that Officer Lewis had cut him off and almost caused an accident. And that's why Mr. Kern had stopped.
I arrived on scene. Mr. Kern and Officer Lewis were standing behind Officer Lewis's car, arguing on the sidewalk, arguing about whether she said she had her lights and siren on. He said you didn't. Something along those lines.
He was saying she had cut him off.
Okay.
And almost caused an accident, right?
Okay.
Correct?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And she apologized to him.
Originally, she said I had my lights and sirens on. Did she apologize? Yeah, I think so. Okay. Sure.
Okay. Is there any other basis for your statement that you saw Mr. Kern obstruct Officer Lewis's initial traffic stop?
That I saw it?
Yeah. You just told me what you saw.
Just tell you what I saw.
Yeah.
Yes. Anything than what I saw?
Correct.
No.
Okay.
Sergeant Wolf testified that he knew he needed to do a thorough investigation of all the facts prior to arresting somebody. Here, Sergeant Wolf admitted he had no personal knowledge that Mr. Kern had any intent to purposefully obstruct or delay Officer Lewis's traffic stop, and Sergeant Wolf never obtained evidence of Mr. Kern's purpose.
And is it fair to say that as of September 22, 2022, that day, that whole day, is it fair to say that you never had any personal knowledge that Mr. Kern purposely obstructed and delayed Officer Lewis's traffic stop?
Objection.
That was his purpose.
Objection.
I don't know if that's fair to say.
Well, what personal knowledge did you have of Mr. Kern's purpose?
Oh.
Objection.
I mean,
That's what I'm asking.
So
Other than what you can assume, I want to know what you had personal knowledge of.
I didn't
What
have-
did you know?
Objection.
just what I observed.
Yeah, so you didn't have any personal knowledge of what his purpose was in that he purposely obstructed or purposely delayed Officer Lewis's traffic stop. Is that fair?
Objection.
Sure. I mean, sure.
And it's fair to say that you never got any evidence of his purpose, that he allegedly purposely obstructed or purposely delayed Officer Lewis's traffic stop. You never got any additional evidence on that after September 22, 2022, correct?
Objection.
You can.
Correct.
Sergeant Wolf's sole basis for the obstruction charge was him showing up, seeing Mr. Goodman's vehicle stopped, and seeing Officer Lewis and Mr. Kern, quote, arguing about whether her lights and sirens were activated. The gist of it was that Officer Lewis was not dealing with her suspect, Mr. Goodman. However, Sergeant Wolf admitted he has no evidence that Officer Lewis wasn't just standing there discussing with Mr. Kern of her own free will.
You don't have any personal knowledge. You never witnessed or heard anything that Mr. Kern was somehow detaining Officer Lewis or forcing her to stand there and talk to him.
Objection.
Is that correct?
I can't answer that question. I can't answer it about. I can't say what he intended to do.
I know you don't know his intent. You've admitted that. My question to you is,
Objection.
you didn't see anything where that would cause a reasonable person to say he's forcing her to stay here against her will.
Objection. Go ahead.
They seemed to be in a heated discussion, argument.
Correct. But do you have any evidence or proof that she wasn't standing there of her own free will?
Objection. Go ahead if you know.
No, I don't know.
You don't have any, correct?
No.
And at no point did you ever hear or see Officer Lewis warn Mr. Kern to back away or to leave the scene.
Objection.
Is that correct?
Not that I can recall, no.
Okay. And certainly, if you saw it, it'd be on your body-worn cam.
Correct.
Okay. And so, as far as you know, Officer Lewis was willingly engaging in this discussion, you call it argument, with Mr. Kern, correct?
Objection.
As far as you know.
Yes. Before I arrested him, it was the only thing I had was that he and her were involved in a heated discussion that took her away from her initial duties of investigating that possible domestic violence suspect.
And you don't know if she voluntarily was taking herself away by voluntarily discussing this with Mr. Kern, correct? You don't know.
Objection.
I can't. Yeah.
Sergeant Wolf also admitted he never asked this question of Officer Lewis.
And you never asked her that question, correct?
Objection.
Before you arrested Mr. Kern?
Not that I can recall, no.
And Sergeant Wolf admitted he had no basis to dispute that Mr. Kern previously had been on the sidewalk waiting and following Officer Lewis's instructions.
This statement by Officer or Lieutenant Williams also says that Mr. Kern followed her directions and waited on the sidewalk as she asked. Do you have any basis to dispute that statement?
I do not.
Okay.
Ultimately, Sergeant Wolf admitted he had no basis to dispute Officer Lewis's statement at the scene prior to the arrest of Mr. Kern that Mr. Kern had committed no crimes.
You agree with me that while you were at the scene and before you arrested Mr. Kern, Officer Lewis said that Mr. Kern didn't commit any crime?
Objection.
If that's what the video says, then yes.
Obstruction is a secondary crime. What crime did I commit?
There's no crime, but I'm identifying you.
And you don't dispute the truthfulness of Officer Lewis's statement, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Sergeant Wolf also testified he was being truthful with Internal Affairs, and he admitted telling Internal Affairs that he had heard Officer Lewis state at the scene that Mr. Kern had committed no crimes, but he nevertheless demanded that Mr. Kern identify himself.
Officer Lewis, you heard her say that Mr. Kern hadn't committed any crime. Why wasn't he allowed to leave the scene?
Objection.
She said that to me?
She said it, and Mr. Kern looked right at you. We'll go through your body-worn camera. He looked right at you, and he said, you just heard her. She said, I didn't commit a crime.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Why wasn't he allowed to leave?
Objection.
Maybe she felt he didn't commit a crime. I felt that he did.
What crime did you feel that he committed?
Objection.
Obstructing her traffic stop.
Okay. And that was why you felt you had the right to require him to produce an ID.
I know I had the legal authority.
That's your belief. Was based on your belief or feeling that he had committed the crime of obstruction.
Based
correct?
on my interpretation of the events, that he committed the crime of obstruction.
And Sergeant Wolf admitted he told Internal Affairs that the only crime he thought Mr. Kern committed was obstructing for failing to identify himself. He also had no basis to dispute Officer Lewis's statement to Internal Affairs that Mr. Kern was not interfering with her traffic stop.
And it says, Sergeant Wolf admits that he assumed Kern was interfering in Officer Lewis's traffic stop and never asked Officer Lewis or Kern what was going on. Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay. And was that a true statement?
Yes.
And he admitted that he, quote, jumped the gun in arresting Mr. Kern.
You also stated, open quotes, I knew I was a little bit jumping the gun. I can tell you that, close quotes. He quotes you, so did you say it?
Yes.
All right. Was it a true statement?
Yes.
After the false arrest of Mr. Kern, Sergeant Wolf met Officer Lewis in the parking lot of the nearby Park Synagogue. One reasonable inference to draw is that this was for the purpose of generating a narrative in police reports that was inconsistent with what actually occurred. In other words, a cover-up.
Has anyone at work, in relation to work, and I'm talking about within Cleveland Heights, has anyone ever accused you of not telling the truth or not being truthful or lying?
Yes.
Who?
Detective Mathis.
And what did Detective Mathis, first of all, how did you become aware of that fact?
After this video came out, I obtained a copy of the Internal Affairs investigation where I read that he accused me of not being truthful.
And who is Detective Mathis, just so we're clear?
He's an Internal Affairs detective.
And what did he accuse you of lying about?
It was somewhat vague. Trying to remember the exact verbiage, but something along the lines of a conversation that I had had with a platoon supervisors and Officer Lewis.
How about Officer Lewis? When did you talk to her after you left the scene of the incident?
Shortly after.
Where were you?
The parking lot of Park Synagogue.
Sorry?
The parking lot of Park Synagogue.
Why were you in the parking lot of Park Synagogue?
Because sometimes that's where officers meet up to talk. It's a large, very large property.
And did you go there with that purpose in mind?
Yeah, oh, yes. Yes.
And why were you going to a place where officers go to talk in order to meet up with Officer Lewis and talk to her? Why were you doing that?
I intended to do a small counseling session.
Why?
At some point during this incident, or after that, I can't recall when it was exactly, during or after, she had made a comment to me that she did not want to charge Mr. Kern because she did not want to get a complaint.
In fact, Sergeant Wolf could not state why he didn't have this conversation that he had with Officer Lewis at the Park Synagogue with her at the scene instead of in secret after the fact.
Why didn't you just have the conversation at the moment she made the statement to you?
I don't know.
Why did you go to the parking lot? Presumably, is it fair to say you knew it would just be you and her in the parking lot, no one else around?
Objection. Go ahead.
That's where officers meet up to talk. I mean,
Was that part of your intention? You wanted to go someplace where there was no one else around?
No.
Why didn't you just have the conversation when she made the statement? Why did you then say, let's go somewhere else to talk about this?
Objection.
I can't recall.
And additionally, making this look even more like a cover-up, neither Sergeant Wolf nor Officer Lewis turned on their body cams for this conversation, despite the fact that both were aware that Mr. Kern had threatened a lawsuit while at the scene.
Okay. When you were in the parking lot, you never turned on your body-worn cam. You never recorded this conversation you had with her, correct?
Correct.
All right. You knew at the time this incident occurred, you knew that Mr. Kern was already threatening a lawsuit, correct?
Objection.
I can't recall if I did or not.
If he's on tape threatening a lawsuit, you don't dispute that at that time of the incident on September 22nd, 2022, while you were still at the scene, he was making statements about suing.
I never saw the tape, so I can't recall, but maybe he did.
So if it's on the tape, you're not disputing that's what he said at the scene?
No, not at all.
Okay, you would agree he said it? Okay. And then once you got there, tell me about the conversation once you were there.
Objection. Ask and answer. Go ahead.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
It was, hey, you know, again, I can't recall exact sequence of events, okay? But it was something along the lines of, you know, hey, how come, you know, you didn't want to do this or whatever it may be. And she just said, well, I don't want to get a complaint.
She repeated herself?
No, I'm telling you about the conversation.
I understand, but she had said that to you previously, right? That she didn't want to get a complaint. So now she's saying it again.
Oh, yeah. And I said, well, you know, that's not how we do our jobs. I mean, and I think that was it.
You don't recall anything else from that conversation?
Not that I can recall. I mean, I'm sure there was, but not that I can recall.
Okay. Did she say anything else?
Not that I can recall.
All right.
Afterwards, Sergeant Wolf again spoke with Officer Lewis at the police station about the incident, but he testified that he could not remember what had been said.
Did you have any further conversations at any time with Officer Lewis about this incident other than that, once you'd left the scene of the incident?
I can't recall.
The inference, of course, is that this was an additional effort to concoct an after-the-fact justification for this unjustified arrest, a cover-up. In his deposition, Sergeant Wolf, in yet another attempt to cover up his misconduct, suggested that Mr. Kern could have been charged with impeding the flow of traffic because of his car being stopped where it was.
We could have charged him with impeding the flow of traffic. We could have charged him with opening his car door in traffic, which is against the law. We could have charged him with a lot of things, but we didn't.
But he admitted that he didn't know if Officer Lewis had directed Mr. Kern to move his vehicle or had permission from Officer Lewis to have his car where it was.
Are you aware of whether Officer Lewis ever directed Mr. Kern to move his vehicle?
Objection.
I'm not aware.
Okay, so you don't know if he wasn't where he was with the permission of Officer Lewis. You don't know.
Correct.
Okay, so you don't know, as you sit here today, whether you could have charged Mr. Kern with impeding the flow of traffic, correct?
Objection.
You don't know.
At the time, I felt strongly we could have.
And he admitted that he had no evidence that Mr. Kern's vehicle impeded traffic, especially in light of the fact that Officer Lewis's vehicle was already there and already traffic had to flow around it regardless of the presence of Mr. Kern's car.
What evidence do you have that traffic was impeded by Mr. Kern's vehicle, but not by the officer and Mr. Goodman, who were also in the same lane and
Objection.
stopped?
None that I can recall.
Okay. And you would agree with me that traffic had to flow around Officer Lewis's vehicle and Mr. Goodman's vehicle, correct?
Objection.
Correct.
Right. So the curb lane, is it fair to call it the curb lane?
Yes.
That curb lane was impeded by those two, and traffic had to flow around it, correct?
Objection.
Correct.
All right. And you didn't make any observation or make any notation that traffic was somehow impeded during this entire process. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. So is it fair to say you did not have probable cause to arrest Mr. Kern for impeding traffic on 9/22/22, correct?
No.
Is that correct?
That's not correct.
Okay. What is the specific probable cause you had to arrest Mr. Kern?
Can I look up the law on my phone?
No, I
Objection. Asked and answered. You can answer him again.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're
His
fine.
vehicle was parked on a traffic stop without any emergency lights activated, and he impeded the flow of traffic.
You don't know if he did impede the flow of traffic. You don't know if any flow of traffic was impeded by him at all. As you sit here today, you don't know. Is that correct?
Objection.
I can't recall.
Okay.
I told you.
Right. So are you swearing that on September 22nd, 2022, are you swearing you had probable cause that Mr. Kern was in fact impeding traffic?
Objection. Argumentative. Go ahead.
I can't recall.
Thank you.
At his deposition, Sergeant Wolf also suggested that Mr. Kern perhaps violated this obscure statute in Ohio that criminalizes the opening of a door into traffic. But he admitted that he had no evidence as to whether it was reasonably safe for Mr. Kern to open his door when he did so after he stopped his car to avoid an accident with Officer Lewis's vehicle.
Do you know if it was reasonably safe for Mr. Kern to open his door when he was forced to stop his vehicle to avoid an accident?
Objection.
Do you know?
I need you to.
Sure.
rephrase
Do you
that.
know if it was reasonably safe for Mr. Kern to open his door after he had to stop his car to avoid being hit? Do you know if it was reasonably safe for him to do so when he opened his car door?
Objection.
I don't know. No.
Okay.
Ultimately, Sergeant Wolf admitted he had no basis to dispute Officer Lewis's statement at the scene prior to the arrest of Mr. Kern that Mr. Kern had committed no crimes.
Officer Lewis was deposed in this case, and she testified that she didn't know what was going on behind her when she cut into Mr. Kern's lane. Do you have any reason to dispute her testimony?
Objection.
Objection.
So as you sit here today, you don't have any personal knowledge that there was probable cause to charge Mr. Kern for failing to yield.
Objection.
Is that correct? As you sit here today?
Can I talk to my attorney for a second?
No. You got a question,
I
Ben?
got to
You gotta
answer. I got to answer.
the
Okay.
question. Yeah.
Sorry.
Hey, go ahead.
Do I have any personal knowledge that
Yeah, as you sit here today.
that he failed to yield?
But-
No.
all right.
Now, can I ask my attorney a question?
Well, if you want to take a break, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll
No,
take a quick
I need to ask him something.
Yeah, we'll take a break.
Yeah, don't make sure.
You agree with me that while you were at the scene and before you arrested Mr. Kern, Officer Lewis said that Mr. Kern didn't commit any crime?
Objection.
If that's what the video says, then yes.
Okay. And you don't dispute the truthfulness of Officer Lewis's statement, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So that's the evidence. Now let's apply those facts to the law. A warrantless arrest is only reasonable under the Fourth Amendment where there is probable cause to believe that the suspect committed a criminal offense. An officer has probable cause for an arrest if the facts and circumstances within that officer's knowledge would lead a reasonable officer to believe that the suspect has committed, is committing, or is about to commit an offense. In assessing probable cause, courts look to the totality of the circumstances confronted by the officer at the time of the arrest. Because probable cause is an objective standard, courts require concrete and articulable facts from which an officer can reasonably infer criminal conduct. Courts do not consider the events that occurred after the arrest or the officer's subjective intent. Here, clearly established law leaves no doubt that merely refusing to identify is plainly insufficient to satisfy the crime of obstruction, and Officer Lewis and Sergeant Wolf otherwise lacked probable cause for an obstruction charge, just as Mr. Kern's photographing and speaking and arguing with the officers was clearly protected conduct, especially where the evidence is clear that Mr. Kern complied with the directives of Officer Lewis to stand back until she was ready to speak with him, and he did so for several minutes. Sergeant Wolf and Officer Lewis both testified that the charge of obstructing official business requires a purpose to prevent, obstruct, or delay the performance of an official act. They also both admitted they had no evidence that Mr. Kern intended to obstruct or delay, and no evidence of any purpose he had that would meet the statutory requirements of obstruction. In fact, Officer Lewis testified that Mr. Kern followed her directives and waited for her to finish with Mr. Goodman. Lack of intent aside, and other than what he said verbally, basically asking for Officer Lewis's name and badge number, Mr. Kern did no act to hamper or impede Officer Lewis's investigation. Rather, Officer Lewis thinks or speculates, after the fact by the way, that taking her eyes off Mr. Goodman's vehicle for 1 second, to tell Mr. Kern 1 second, delayed her interaction with Mr. Goodman for 1 second, even though the video shows she never slowed down her momentum to Mr. Goodman's vehicle. Even with this alleged 1 second delay, which stemmed from Mr. Kern's request for her name and badge number, it clearly fails to meet the requirement that there be a substantial stoppage of police business under Ohio law. Simply put, and even construing this evidence in the light most favorable to the officers here, it falls short under the standards that the Sixth Circuit has articulated in false arrest cases. And the after-the-fact suggestion that Mr. Kern allegedly failed to yield to lights and sirens does not change this legal conclusion. Sergeant Wolf was not a witness to any of those purported events, and he had no independent basis to disagree with Officer Lewis's statement that Mr. Kern had committed no crime. So there you have the actual facts in this case that were presented to the court by Mr. Kern's lawyers, and now I just gave you the actual argument presented to the court by Mr. Kern's lawyers. Illustrating how tough it actually is to litigate and prove one of these cases is the fact that even after all of this, the court has not yet made a decision about whether to give these officers qualified immunity or whether to allow this case to proceed to a jury trial. While I think the evidence is strong here, even if a jury trial is ordered, it's clearly not happening anytime soon. In the meantime, at least you get to see all of this evidence for yourself and reach your own conclusions. Let me know in a comment what you think. Hopefully you learned something about the actual process of litigating these cases that you really don't hear or see anywhere else, showing why this is such a difficult type of law to practice. Once the court rules or something else happens, I'll do my best to let you know an update, and you can follow along by subscribing both here and at the blog, thecivilrightslawyer.com. Please follow me on X at JohnBryanESQ. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.